The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in and making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro.
Have you been waiting for part 3 of my interview with Will Kidd? Well, here it is. Let's get right into it.
I don't know.
I used to make a joke with like, hey, why can't I do a Free Willy contest? How come I can never do that?
Right.
And he said because the contest would never end. Like you wouldn't be able to tell them to put all their shit away and then move on to the next thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Some of them
they would never put their shit away. They'd be like, Free Willy,
yeah. Like they wouldn't care if you gave them a prize for it, and they would not end the contest. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's true. Why is that? I don't know. But like you used to do contests like that. Over in Splash. I know you did because I remember bitching about how come I can't do a contest like that. So you had to be doing stuff like that. Unless they were doing stuff upstairs.
Actually.
I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe that's what it was.
I'm going to bet you it was upstairs.
Do you remember the mic confusion? Do you remember the cordless mic thing where like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they'd be talking upstairs.
With the cordless mics.
Through.
Then you like...
I'd be like, what the hell's going on with this? Yep. Couldn't use a cordless mic downstairs. Had to use a corded one.
Yep. Because if you talked, you used to talk over the band upstairs or whatever it was. Right. That freaking frequency thing that went on. That ended. They did something, the FCC, over that. But at one point, that's funny because they all were on the same frequency. And if you were 2 different floors of the same building and you talked on your mic, then somebody upstairs would hear it. That was pretty funny.
It was hilarious.
I remember... Not that I'm dropping names coming around. And
not that I'm dropping names.
Yeah, no, he's still around. So we're all
Is he still around? That's awesome.
Around. He's in radio sales, I think. And he may even be
do you remember my brief stint on the radio up there? What was the name of the station they worked for?
Hot
was
106?
It a power station? What was it? Hot 106,
you
right?
were on Hot 106. I was
on Hot 106, and I pissed off all the interns there.
Did you?
Because they'd been there putting their time in, doing the nights. Shitty shift. And then I come in, I do a voice check, and they put me on the morning show right away. And there was a lot of animosity.
Do you remember who you were working with? Were you working with? No.
I was working with in the morning on drive time. Yeah, but I couldn't do it because you got to think back at the time, I was still married. We had my son who was still very young, like 3 or 4 years old, right. I think at the time.
And you were out working until 3
I was working until like 2 o'clock, and then I'd get off and have to be at the station by 4 or 4:30.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sleeping that whole night. I'd be like, I'd come in smelling like booze and cigarettes. Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Freaking fog machine and all that.
Light up these cards for you. Bang, 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 bang.
I mean, smell like a fog machine, dude.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, because back then that was the cigarette thing didn't go away till the 2000s. So people were smoking in the club back then.
In that club.
Yep. I quit in that club.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I quit smoking while I was still working in that club. I'm just saying it was not easy. It was not easy.
Oh no.
But okay. So we had our little whatever. We talked about clubs and we talked our little thing. Now we're going to go from here to Michigan and your life. And when you decided that you were going to, I think during the pandemic. Well, what did you do before that in Michigan when you moved back?
When I came back, I was doing odd jobs here and there,
mm-hmm.
and then went to a is it like a job recruiter place?
Okay.
You go in and they like have different clients that they deal with and stuff.
Yeah.
And got a few odd jobs here and there. I was at a printing facility that did they do the big stickers for the sides of the semis.
Okay.
The sides of, like drink more milk or whatever, whatever Kroger brand or whatever.
Like shrink wrapping almost?
No, it was just, they're big giant stickers as big as the side of a semi truck, Excuse me. And I was working there, and there was something about the mixture of chemicals and cardboard dust and shit in the air, and both my retinas at the same time, it almost looked like I had pink eye. I lasted less than a week, and both of my eyes were just swollen, almost shut. And I went to the doctor. He's like, "Yeah, your corneas are scratched all the fucking hell."
Wow.
So they had to give me this eye ointment, I call it, because it was thick like Vaseline.
Wow.
And it was nasty. And I remember having to try to hold my eye open and get that stuff in there. So basically, I was you couldn't see.
Right.
It was like looking underwater. So obviously, I couldn't work for at least a week.
Yeah.
It's almost 2, actually. And the day I went back, the next day, I got it again in my other eye, my left eye. I had one in my right eye and then one in my left eye. So I said,
how the hell did anybody else work in there?
I don't know. I have no idea. No clue.
Put goggles on. If you had
my eyeballs. Yeah. Oh, but the particles are so microscopic, it's not going to help.
Yeah.
You'd have to wear a scuba mask.
Right.
Excuse me.
That's what I mean. You would want to wear goggles for swimming. Yeah.
Right. So it was that, and then
excuse me.
I can't remember what else it was I was doing. It was, but that same company got me a job about a month or so later at a place called Duramold, and that turned into an over 5-year kind of thing. I went from being a DJ to doing tool and die.
Wow.
So it was tool and die repair. So it was very
different.
Very different, very labor intensive.
Yeah.
And it was definitely not good for my back, but you just had to suck it up and do it, But the good thing about it is, at the time I was weighing 205 pounds. Mm-hmm. For me, in a 5 foot, almost 5'9" and a half, 205 pounds, I was looking pretty chubby.
Yeah.
I was looking pretty fat. And the good thing about that is after about a year of working there, I was down to 162 pounds. I lost it all, just from working there, because it was so labor intensive. Because when you're taking these dies apart, you can't damage them. So you have to hit them with something to get them apart and get all the pieces out. So you're talking about a 30 to 40 pound big round piece of brass.
Yeah.
There's no handles or anything. You just have to hold it. Like a giant soup can, and smack things with it. So, yeah, it was pretty labor intensive. But it was about that time, about 2020, after I'd been working there for quite a few years, that during the scamdemic.
Yeah. Anyway, yes.
Where I was getting paid for not being there.
Right.
That I decided to just, I'm going to, start building bicycle wheels.
Yep.
And so I was just doing it, and I put it up on a couple of the web pages that I was members of on Facebook, and they were selling real quick. So I was like, so I was buying a few parts, doing this, doing that. And shortly after I came back off the scamdemic thing, the owner of the company I was working for approached me, because I actually think he had some COVID money to spend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of businesses got X amount of dollars, but they had to spend it on something within the business, or they got taxed on it at the end of the year.
Right.
So, yeah, he's like, how'd you like to start it? You big time? And I'm like, yeah. Like Tom Cruise. I went, show me the money. Not Tom Cruise. It was. So
wait a minute. He asked you, how'd you like to do what?
He asked me how I'd like to, try to get Gemini going. I hadn't named it Gemini yet. Full time, because he would financially back it. And I'm like, okay. So we started having meetings and stuff, and decided, and I think he dumped about $65,000 into that to help me get going.
Wow.
So, and I'm still going.
Yeah.
So I owe him everything. And, it's, I want to get to the point where I can get him that money back.
Yeah.
Because even if he was using money that, he didn't come out of his pocket or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right.
The fact of the matter is he's the one who got Gemini going.
Yep.
And that's where I'm at right now.
Right. So now what I want you to do now is a an audio promo for Gemini for anybody who wants to. Yes, because you have to talk about it.
I got to talk about Gemini now?
Well, I mean, you can like explain what do you have, and if there's anybody who's into that kind of thing, like bikes or wants to look at
There's actually a whole subculture around gasoline-powered motorized bikes where they actually have professional races twice a year out at Apple Valley Speedway in California.
Okay.
And they just had them over the past weekend or so. The last, the 28th or so, I think. So, yeah, it was just a few days ago.
Okay.
And up until I came out with my products, everybody was kind of piecemealing everything together because there was nothing really specific to that industry, the way things are set up, because mopeds are set up just a little bit different. Okay. Everything's set up just a little bit different, the way that the chain engages, where everything needs to be mounted. So I came up with a full system that allows these guys to basically just buy my wheels and put them directly on their bike, and the chain runs directly to the hub, just like a moped.
Yeah.
They got disc brakes on them. So yeah, I mean, I feel weird talking about it, actually.
Why?
Why?
Like, just because it's a product that you put together, it's something that you created, is something that is important.
Well, how about I'll say this then: if there's anybody that's listening that's interested in motorized bicycle wheels, because that's what I do. All they have to do is Google Gemini bicycle products, and I will come the very first hit on Google.
Okay.
So we'll just leave it, and then they can go right to the website from there and just kind of have a look around.
And then what about it? Do you, at this point, you go in every day and you do what you do because you like it. So what about it? What part of it is the most motivating to you when you go in the morning and work? Is it that you're putting out a specific product? Is it putting it together? What do you look forward to?
I think the feedback that I get from the people who purchase, because a lot of them are gun shy, because it's not a cheap investment.
Yeah.
But I come from the old school, so all my stuff is always over designed. It's a weapon, basically.
Right.
It's made to last.
Right.
It's not. There's no design obsolescence built into my stuff. I would rather have somebody buy my product and never have to buy it again.
Right. One good, solid.
There's enough people coming in and out of this industry that I'm never going to run out of.
Yeah.
I'm never going to run out of customers.
Okay.
So,
and the word of mouth, is that good too for you? It's got to be.
I've got a 100% approval rating. I have not had one person. I mean, people have problems. It's a moving part.
Yeah.
There's wear parts on it. There's axles, there's bearings. But I have never had one person who has owned any of my stuff or purchased any of my stuff who's been unhappy after their purchase. Not one.
See?
They're all like, if there was something wrong, he took care of it. He went over and beyond. But that's just, again, that's old school.
Yeah.
My name and my brand is on that. So I treat these people like gold because they're the reason that I don't have to punch a time clock.
Yep.
I can wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and not go, oh my God, I got to be to work in a half hour.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes it's more profitable than other times, but how much money do you really need to be rich?
Well, how much money? Yeah. What is it? What is rich?
Rich is a relative term,
right?
Depending on your mindset. If that makes any sense.
So one of my favorite phrases is a Sheryl Crow phrase, and it's, I'm going to soak up the sun. The phrase is, it's not having what you want, it's wanting what you got.
Right.
So, and I'm in the middle of studying a lot of Stoicism right now, which is a whole nother thing. But
Stoicism is good.
Being able to appreciate the less you need and the less you want in life, the more lucrative and the more valuable life is to you.
Yep.
So if stuff is all you want, then you can always be swayed by that stuff. You can always be depressed by that stuff. You can always be frustrated by that stuff.
Right.
But obviously the stuff that matters, you do have time and you do have money, and sometimes you got to buy one, use one to buy the other, that kind of thing. You can never usually always have, not a lot of people have both, because that's a gift, right?
There has to be a very, very, there's a very delicate balance between that. Like I said, sometimes I wonder if I'm going to get the bills paid, but somehow they always get paid, and there's always a little money in the bank. The same thing happened to me the past couple of days. I was wondering, I'm looking at my account. I was like, there's money going out. There's money going out. There's money going out. There's nothing coming in. It's slow time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, 2 big sales in in an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm okay again. And if it wasn't for that roller coaster ride like that, I'd be extremely happy. But I'm a real happy guy because, again, like I said, it's all relative. I feel like a millionaire because of the fact, I can be there for my daughter 100% of the time if I want to. I can be there for my mom, 100% of the time because, she's getting way up there.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to I can drop stuff whenever I want and just, I think I want to go pick my daughter up early and go to lunch today. And I do that.
Yep. I will say this. So if you look over your entire life, and that phrase that I brought up with you a couple days ago, and I think we got into a conversation about it, but I don't remember, and it's a phrase I'm stealing from one of my exes, and it's called act like you've been there before. And you've been through a bunch of stuff in life where you now know, in my opinion, if you go through something, you know now that you can handle something like that. So moving around, finding new jobs, losing everything, these are things that you've already done and know it's not going to kill you. You don't want to go through it again because why would you?
I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But
you also know you're not that you can survive that stuff.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason I just believe that most people should try to take from their life experiences and say, okay, I don't have to fear this anymore. This is the thing that I've always feared, but then it happened. I got through it. I'm still here. Maybe I made a better life than I had before.
Right.
Or I have built more character than I had before, or whatever it is. But you can say to yourself, okay, I can draw from that. That's something that I know I've already done. And I don't have to, just not having to fear it is peaceful, I think, personally.
You have to be able to draw from all your experiences. Right. Otherwise, you don't round yourself out.
Right. But do you know people who've been through stuff a couple times and they're upset that they've been through it and they fear it despite having been through it? And you're kind of like, but why do you fear it? You've already done it.
Right. You should be saying, come on, bitch. That's all you got?
Right.
Let's rumble.
It's just one less thing to fear if you go through the experience of it, even if it sucks. Even if something sucks, you at least know what it entails.
Right.
Right. So death, it sucks. You don't want something like that to happen. But if you go through it a couple times, you know the drill of how it's going to go.
Yeah, and you're talking about death of somebody else, right?
Obviously, if it's you, you don't care because you're not there. But what I'm saying is,
I had to interject that because you think about that, you're like, you go through death a couple of times. And I'm like, I think I could do that.
You never know. If you've been in the hospital and you've been close to death a couple of times, some people die and come back, but that's rare. But
I don't know. Maybe I had brain surgery a few years ago, and maybe I died during that and came back. I don't know.
You might lose yourself in some kind of health crisis or something like that. But what I mean is somebody that you love dies, your dog dies, something like that. Those experiences are not fun. They're not supposed to be fun. Nobody wishes them on anybody. Nobody wants to go through them. But once you do, you now know how it goes. What's the process of that?
Right.
So now you're like, all right, I don't want to go through it again. But you can't avoid it. You can't get away from it. I think avoiding it makes you miserable. I think fearing it after you've been through it it's upsetting mentally, emotionally. It actually makes you less healthy to fear stuff like that. But once you've been through it, to me, it's something that you put under your belt. Like, I get my medal for that. I went through it. I deserve accolades for that. That's like, that goes in my resume as something I did and got through it.
Right.
So now I know it's coming again. When it does, I'll be ready for it.
Right.
Not bring it, but more like, I don't want it, but if it comes, I can handle it. I now know. To me, that's what, and then I'm going to roll into the fact that you are pretty much a single dad.
Yes.
Right. And there are very few, there are very few that are really taking care of their kids, like exclusively with absolutely no anything. Like, I know guys that are single dads, but they're not. I guess I should ask, like, are you a single dad where the mom is just not in the picture at this point?
Correct.
Right. That's very rare. That doesn't.
I mean, she is.
Yeah.
As far as she interacts with Adriana every day, almost every day. I hear him, like when I wake up in the morning before school, and Adriana will be on like a video call with him, and they'll be bullshitting and having a good time.
That's good.
Stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, she talks to her at least 4 to 5 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
But she is busy as well in Florida. She's in the like end of life care, so she's under a lot of stress, and she's also very busy, and I get it. But I also it was my big push to get my daughter here because it's a small town. And I think once she got to kind of, experience it, I think she'd like it. And now she never wants to leave.
Yeah.
She loves this town now. She's just a small town Michigan girl now.
Just a small town girl. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yes. So I'm not going to be able to do that when I was singing A Little Journey. So we're going back to the fact that, in a way, you're pretty much taking care of her solo. That, like I said, that doesn't really, that I don't know a lot of guys where that's the case. I know a lot of guys where there's visitation because, like, the mom is in the same town nearby, whatever the case may be, so that there's a little bit of interaction that's in person, but for the most part, you don't deal with that. So that's rare, and you love it.
Yeah, I do. I do. I love being a girl dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's again rounded me out quite a bit.
I bet. And think about the life you came from, right? Because you had your son, but your son was different in a way. Yeah. So now, what is it about having a daughter that makes you rethink anything from your past?
What is it about having a daughter that makes me rethink anything from my past?
Yeah, just like we were talking about how it used to be in the 80s and 90s and how women might have been treated, and just like your opinion of women has to have changed, and stuff like that.
It's you think about back in the 80s and stuff, I was typical guy. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Typical guy.
Oh yeah. We know what that means.
Yeah, typical guy.
Yeah.
And from then until now, I kind of wish I could go back and slap the shit out of my 22-year-old self.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you're a fucking dumbass.
Right. Do you know that there are men out there that have daughters that don't know how to put those two things together? They don't see that, which is weird. But
I'm kind of a free range dad.
Yeah.
A free range parent. I give her the space to grow as a person because she needs to be a strong, independent woman. Because, regardless of what you might hear, it still is tough for women out there. We're not everything isn't an even playing field, and you, as a human being, you have to be able to look out there and just know that. So she's very independent. She's very smart. She makes it very easy to be a father to her.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My son was the same way. So, but having a girl is just completely different. I can't explain it, but yeah, she's just phenomenal, man. I can't I'm expressionless, like when it comes to it, because there's just so many things I could say,
Mm-hmm.
and they all try to get out at the same time, and then nothing comes up.
What do you do?
Yeah.
I want to know if you have advice for fathers that have daughters on what, and obviously you don't want to tell fathers what to do.
No.
But for fathers that have daughters that don't know what the best course of action is to raise a daughter, even if their moms are around, that kind of thing. But just like what's your best advice on being a dad? Or
I have such excuse me, I have such limited experience
mm-hmm.
with being a girl dad.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I do know that and I see it all the time, and it makes me kind of go, and that's just be real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't fake it around kids. They're sponges.
Yeah.
They absorb everything you say you're going to do and don't do, everything around you, how you treat people, how you treat yourself, how you treat them. It all plays such a big role in how at least my child grows up.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think I'm trying to do something right, because right now she decided to buckle down this year. She's pulling straight A's in school.
Yeah.
She got a really nice guy who's her boyfriend. I like him a lot. He's a cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I also talk very bluntly to them about things.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to sex and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
And but that's how you got to be. She's growing, and she's experiencing, and I got to give her enough room to find the person that she wants to be,
mm-hmm.
but at the same time, let her know that I'm there to intervene or step in to shield her from any bullshit if I need to be.
Right.
But for the most part, it's like riding a bike, man. You're going to have to fall down a couple of times, get some scrapes and bruises, and hopefully you don't break anything.
Right.
Yep.
I think so. I agree.
It's really, I don't really think it's that complicated. It's just use common sense. You're
assuming that they have it.
It's so far and fleeting, it seems.
I'm so cynical. Common sense, not so common.
Yeah. Uncommon sense.
I would love to have better faith in humanity sometimes than I do. But the one other thing I didn't want to forget to ask is, like, when you decide to build a business, if somebody out there is looking to build a business or do their own thing, what would you give them as like some good advice to just like lean on, as far as like, what do you know now that you did this type of thing that they could use to their advantage?
Be prepared to, especially when you're first going, be prepared to work unconventional hours, put in the work,
mm-hmm.
put in the back work, and kill everybody with kindness. Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where your next meal's coming from. And you need to be that person that bought one wheel from you when you had it on sale at a budget could be the next person who decides to buy, could be your next big sale.
Yeah.
It basically is just treat people like human beings, treat them good. I mean, I don't know if that comes down to running a business or not, but it seems to be working pretty well for me. I've got a good product. You got a good product, you stand behind it 110%.
Right.
You're be absolutely crystal clear about everything.
Accountable too.
Don't try to overhype shit. Like, I see so much people coming out with these ideas and trying to overhype this shit, and try to get you excited to buy something.
Yep.
And I tell people it's a bicycle. It's a glorified bicycle wheel.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's still a bicycle wheel.
Yeah.
Thing is the person who's building it and selling it has integrity. Mm-hmm. So therefore, my product has integrity. So just be a good person and realize that it's not going to be easy. If you're willing to put in the hard work and,
mm-hmm.
you got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Going with, clarity. So, I knew it might not, and it still might not work. It's only been 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It could still fail miserably. I mean, I'm still putting in 6 days a week minimum.
Right. Well, you never know. Someday it could all accumulate and suddenly.
Well, and there's always expanding into other directions too. It's like I'm not that far off of just being able to put out straight bicycle products, and there's bicycles in every single town in the world.
Right. That's true.
So
I will say this. So from the time that I've met you and from what I've known of you, and this is another one of those compliments. Oh, I know how much we hate those. But I find you to be fairly, and I don't really like people around me that don't have any modesty and humility. So that's a given. I don't feel like you have an egotistical approach to anything. Like, I don't feel like you're like an egocentric individual.
I try to stay humble to make up for my very egotistical past.
Yeah, but even when you were like, I don't know, maybe because of the business.
Well, even before I met you, back in the 90s, I was the shit as far as I was concerned.
Okay. Well, then maybe.
But looking back on it, I wasn't the shit. I was just shit.
Well, I think sometimes we have to build ourselves up because we're not getting it from anywhere else, maybe, or because of the job you're in, right? Where you feel like you have to go out there as a DJ and you have to hype yourself up because it's part of the job.
Yeah.
It's why I'm not a millionaire right now, specifically because I cannot stand to promote myself. I hate it. I hate marketing myself. I hate the sales aspect of my job. I hate it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be doing a whole lot better than I am now. But
yeah, I feel you on that one. I definitely
it sucks because it
feels too egotistical for me to do that kind of stuff. It feels like it does, and when you can strip your ego out of stuff, things get so much easier, and you realize it's not, especially for guys, it's not that you're any less of a man.
No.
Stripping your ego out of something, it's being able to step out of that and look at it from a completely different perspective.
Right.
It's like, maybe you are wrong. Maybe you are being an asshole. Maybe you just need to just cool your fucking shit.
Right.
And do what's asked of you. I don't know.
So I feel like when it comes to guys as a woman and as a fairly rooted in originality or an older feminist. I'm like a Gloria Steinem feminist. I am. So looking at it from that point of view, we should never be. If you say to yourself, you're not less of a man, like, so I don't understand, we've had this conversation about men and women and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still riding on that this week, where to be a man, there's specific things that men think that they need to be, and somehow or other subjectively think that there are things that make them more or less of a man out there in general. I don't know what that theory comes from, because I think depending on who you are, everybody's got a different opinion of that. But the phrase being less of a man, to me, is almost like, what does that even mean? When you break it down to what is that? Is that John Wayne? What is that? And I don't even know. Am I making a reference to people that are too old to know who John Wayne is or too young to know who John Wayne is? But, what is being a man? And I don't mean that, I'm not saying this to disassemble men in any way, but we should all just be people. I don't understand what. So when I
get it,
listen, a real man does this and he does this and he does this, and I always want to say, as opposed to what, like a fucking straw man, a fake man,
right?
What does that mean?
Right. We had that conversation. Well, I take care of my kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids. That doesn't make you any more of a man.
Right.
You're supposed supposed to take care. You're supposed to get up in the morning and breathe because, that's good.
Yeah, like
Breathing.
If I said to you, hey, I want you to know, Will, that I'm not like other women. I mean, I breathe all the time.
Right?
I even breathe when I'm not. I even breathe more than I'm supposed to breathe. You would say,
right. Sometimes I breathe, under the covers. Can you believe it? I can breathe in hot air.
Like you'd be like, oh, okay. So when somebody brings that to you, you're just kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this information? Or why is this? I don't know. Do you feel like you need to?
I think it just comes down to something else we talked about. It's being comfortable with who you are.
Yes.
Knowing your flaws. Knowing your flaws. Knowing, it's like, hey, you know what? I know what my strengths are, and I've got a pretty good handle on what my weaknesses are too. So I try to work on the weaknesses every day to try to balance things and try to round myself out a little bit more. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'll never be perfect. There's no such thing.
Right.
But can I be tolerable? Can I give? Instead of being self-centered, are you self-centered or are you other-centered? That's
a big thing.
I always try to be focused on being other-centered. I usually try to put everyone before me, as much as I can. But there's some points where you just have to stop.
Well, I think it's a balance.
You don't put yourself you don't put yourself in a good space inside your head.
Right.
And at the end of the day, the other people that you're taking care of are like, your friends or whatever like that. They're not in charge of your mental well-being. That all falls directly on you.
Right.
You are the center of
your own. You're the only
universe.
person that you can control, and you're the only person that you can fix.
Right. Yeah. I can't control what other people say about me, but I can control how I think about what they say.
And this is part of, obviously, I'm narrowing down stoicism to, I'm not following it like to the letter, but I'm taking from it what I can. That's useful to me, which is what I'm supposed to be doing from what I understand.
That's what you're supposed to do anyway.
Right. But I mean, I don't follow anything without questioning it. I don't follow anything without looking at it with some type of balance. And to me, you have to respect yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to support yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have to be open to people that agree with that and do that as well. And then you also have to, I don't think that if you respect yourself more than others, or if you love yourself more than others, or if you focus on yourself more than others, it's an out of balance thing. And I think if you focus on others and not yourself, it's an out of balance thing. So I think it's like
you have to give so much 50-50, because if you're a good human, or even if you're just a regular human being, I think in the core of all of us, we all have this desire to help, even if it's only a little bit. I mean, and a lot of the times when people won't step in and help their fellow human beings, is either out of fear or, I'm going to be late to my meeting and I'm going to lose my job and this and that and the other. You get too wound up in all the other stuff and kind of forget about what it is to actually be just a person. We're the only species that pays to live on the planet. You know?
Yeah.
So
but we came up with that. So
exactly. Well, as regular human beings, we wouldn't have come up with that. I would have been happy, like, stripping out all money and going from the barter system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's going to weed out the people who are greedy and whatever, really have no actual, I can't say actual worth, but if you're good at something, somebody's always willing to barter something for something else.
Right.
I love the barter system. I still use the barter system.
I do too, but I'm sure there's people that would come along and just decide, if they are greedy, that they're going to force everybody to give them what they want and give back nothing, because there are people out there like that. So
there are absolutely people around, and
maybe that's why we ended up with money, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I get it. Same time, you can't let those people, you can control your reaction to them. You can't control what they do.
Right.
So,
right.
And to me, I'm just like, sorry for your pitiful existence. I'm going to go over here where I'm happy. Bye.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's also a balance in.
You suck, and your request for the humanity sucks.
Right.
Away.
I think there's also a balance between being able to stay in a circle and try to make a difference and walking away knowing when to leave the party and saying, okay, this is ineffective and it's just frustrating me and it's getting everybody nowhere, depending on whatever it is, whether it's a conversation or whether it's whatever.
What's that old saying? You just got to cut your losses.
Right. You got to cut your losses, but you have to know when. Like, I don't think you should always walk away.
No.
But I also don't think you should always stick it out and fight until you're blue in the face if it's not doing it.
You got to fight the good fight. Well, sometimes the good fight is knowing when to cut those ties because you have to save enough for yourself.
Right.
You only have so many spoons to get through the day. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have. I've heard of it many times.
People with ADHD and also people who have
neurodivergence. Yes.
Neurodivergent. It's a very, very common saying. And
it is.
When I first heard that, the little light went on inside my head. And I was like, could I possibly be one of these people who thinks kind of along those lines?
I think so. I think a lot of people that I gravitate to are that way, honestly. So
I don't try to self-diagnose myself, and I don't believe in labels. I just know how my brain works, and I always tell everybody I'm wired different. Right. I think different. Sometimes it takes me years to process stuff.
Yep.
But then when I do process it, the light comes on. I understand it completely.
Right. Yeah.
It's always brewing there, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's a million ideas in my head every single day. Sometimes I don't sleep at night because I can't shut it off.
Right.
But you know what? I'm okay with that.
Right.
Because that's the way I'm wired, and that's
right. So there's not supposed to be
a certain way to do things.
So when I grew up, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about myself. I really don't want to pull an Oprah and be like, well, this reminds me of myself in my story. But what I'm saying is, I have always, for my entire life, been
told. It's not narcissistic at all. Come on.
I've been told from people from a young age that, like, I did stuff the wrong way. I'm not supposed to do things like this. I'm not supposed to do things like that. And for me to be myself made other people uncomfortable. That's been going on my whole life. So when I realized that getting into Myers-Briggs and some other stuff like that, that I don't operate like everyone else, and that there are a lot of people out there that don't operate like everyone else. And for me, the validation was to find people that were the same and that said the same thing to me. Wow, when I was young, I had the same problem. Understanding you're not alone is a big deal. I don't know, for whatever reason, for a lot of years, and I think Gen X and boomers, the Gen X boomer generation is very guilty of this. Keeping shit under the carpet, not telling anybody anything. Yeah. Our families, at least, made us sit in silence and in solitude about shit and not talk to anybody about it. So it's very big for our generation, I think, to find other people that are going through the same thing that we thought we were the only ones dealing with. And it sounds really silly, but is very, very therapeutic to find that there's several people out there that are the same. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of it has to do with people are, like I said, institutionalized from a very young age. You think about it. I'm not talking about incarcerated. I'm talking about, the daily pounding of ads and the way things are supposed to be on TV and what is taught in schools. And I mean, think about all the things that you grew up in school that were taught to you as truths that have come to be known as false now. How much time was wasted back then? Because somebody with an ego wrote a book and said, this is the way it's going to be. I don't have to pull my ego out of this. I'm right. And everyone around the world is going to think the way that I need them to think.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but early on in my life, I was one of those guys who stood up and gave it all the big fucking finger and said, I don't think so. I would say this doesn't sit well.
I don't know if in school I had that problem. I do know in church I did, for sure.
Yeah.
And now I'm not saying I don't knock anybody that's religious. I don't have any problem with religion. The only thing I ever have a problem with is a religion that won't allow you to question what you're learning.
Right.
So if somebody, and it's not just religion, but any organization that tells you that you need to blindly follow what they're telling you and you don't have the right to question it.
Yeah, if you can't say these 4 words to them, make it make sense.
Yes.
Without getting some kind of backlash, then that's, to me, that's a good sign. Say, I got to go.
I would always, like, I can't imagine trying to get a bunch of people to follow me and then have absolutely no interest in any of their questions. I don't understand.
You ready? I'd be like Homer Simpson in that episode where he disappears in the brush like this.
But yeah, I don't understand. I think human beings that are not allowed, that are trained to not question, is dangerous to me. It's just dangerous. You're supposed to be able to ask questions and discuss.
They're the sleepers. They're the sleepers.
Well, that's the person that, if somebody, in my opinion, if somebody's feels like you should follow what they're teaching you, then they owe it to you to explain shit you have questions on. They just owe it to you. If that's what they expect you to do, if they expect you to just blindly follow them.
They tell me something and I don't quite understand it, I'll be like, hold on a second. You're going to have to give me a couple of years because I'm going to go over here and I'm going to figure it out by myself, okay? And I'll be back.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, anybody that feels that you're supposed to learn from them should answer your questions. It's just weird to me that anybody would give you shit about that.
If they don't have the answers, just say that you don't have the answer. Don't just say you shouldn't be asking that because why? And we're going to find out what's behind the curtain, like in Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, just stop trying to shut me down and stop trying to threaten me that, you're going to abandon me if I don't stop asking questions. So when I was in Sunday school, I was not popular. Let's put it that way. Because I had questions about everything. I don't, if I'm learning, and I actually have this problem with people in general. If you tell me something and I'm really interested in what you're telling me, I'm going to ask you questions about what you're talking about. I'm not trying to call you out. I'm not trying to make you not right. I'm trying to find out details because it's interesting to me. But some people take that as like I'm questioning what they're telling me, which is not what I'm doing.
Are you threatening me?
Right. Like I'm just curious, So I don't know. There's always the blue car theory, which I'll get into. I've already explained during the podcast. I won't do it to you. But, if you get all excited about something, and you get me on board with something that you want to do, and then you change what you're doing, I'm going to ask you why you changed what you're doing. Why? Because you got me involved. Just specifically, I don't care what your reasoning is. I just care that, like, you explain it to me so that I can follow you to whatever it is that you want me to be excited about. So I'm not going to follow you only on your terms. I'm going to ask you questions about stuff that I see change or you doing because I want to know the reasons why. I like to know why people do what they do. I like to know the reasons behind it. I like to take shit apart and figure out how it works. It's always been the way I am. So that's why Sunday school was so fun for me.
What do you mean? It's so straightforward.
Yeah. Not just religion, but in school I was that way. But I have, luckily with the school, you end up with teachers that are more interested in you being curious like that. So depending on what it is that you're learning.
If you're lucky, you do.
I always pretty much was.
Good. My daughter's got some of those teachers this year. She's actually really interested in her government class this year, which is, I'm like, government? Really? She goes, yeah, the teacher's really good. And I was like, that's exactly what I like to hear.
Yep.
You get them involved in stuff and just, and
the teachers, they should teach you how, not only should you learn what you're learning, but teachers should teach you how to independently research.
Yeah.
And independently research correctly, by the way.
Yep.
To find peer reviews. And Google actually has a whole side to their site that's just peer review and documentary and doc stuff that's not commercialized. So it's literally like a place that authors would go and teachers would go. It's just all that kind of shit. If you don't know about that kind of thing and you just do a regular Google, you have to be able to weed through the shit coming back at you. and know that some of it is bullshit, or at least understand how to stare and compare, and .org, get your way through it and find what you need. Find people who aren't trying to tell you something because they're selling something, or tell you something because they're trying to get theirs, whatever it is. Now, I get
confused. They can just go use the old-fashioned Dewey Decimal System at their local library.
True. That would be nice if, I think, so there's a lot of things I think we should learn as kids growing up. Obviously, we knew how to do library because that's all we had, and encyclopedias, stuff like that. But it would be cool if kids, they didn't have to do it all the time, but if they just had an understanding of how to like navigate a library system. Because at some point, I think society is trying to make people way too dependent on technology, way too dependent on internet, and there was a point in time, I love reading articles and I like learning, but I don't really I don't like videos.
Yeah.
I really don't. I just hate them. They're not convenient for me. Like, I'm usually working. I can't watch them. I'm either somewhere where it's too loud where I can't watch them, or I'm somewhere where I'm on a phone call, whatever it is. Videos are very invasive to me. And so when I want to see something,
you can read faster than the people talking too.
Right. You know, I want an article. I want to put it here. I want to read pieces of it when I have a minute, blah, 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 whatever. That's like the way I've always done it. And I noticed at one point that it seemed like the algorithm was trying to eliminate videos. Anyway, I just always thought that it felt like the algorithm was trying to get rid of like articles and text for some reason. So anytime I try to find something, it would push me towards videos, and I'd be like, I don't want that. Why does this? So I got frustrated about it. And I remember I posted something about it. Like, what? I just want to read some fucking art. I just want paragraphs. That's all I want. I don't, and a couple of people like, that's true. Like, I'm noticing that like a video is the answer to everything. Every time I'm trying to find something, the internet tries to shove a video down my throat about it. And I don't want to watch that. It's weird because it's like somebody's handing you information. So I think it's training people to listen to people.
It's a first hit, so it must be the truth. And what's weird is like one of the free speech places internet browsers I used to use, DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
It's starting to look almost exactly like
really?
Google. Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
It's like a lot of this stuff I'll Google and I'll be like, I'm going to go over to DuckDuckGo and search this. And I search DuckDuckGo and I come up with the same answers. And I'm like, well, it's either the truth or DuckDuckGo got, bought out.
Wow. I'm going to have to, you just gave me a rabbit hole. I'm going to go check that out tomorrow and find out if there's something going on.
Go rabbit hole it up.
Yeah.
Rabbit hole it up.
There may be something going on behind the scenes. I'm going to find out from people that, I bet you the Reddit guys are all over that. The Reddit community has probably cracked that wide open already.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to let you go because it's late, but we knew we were going to get into a really long conversation. So remember this, when you're looking at your checking account and you're saying, I don't know, I got bills coming up, I don't know what's going to happen. And then a bunch of money comes in and you're like, I can pay my bills and then I have a little leftover money. Make sure that you call it Snapple money.
Snapple money.
Yeah.
I'll save my Snapple jar and put it in there.
You should. But you can call it money for Snapple. I got enough money for a couple Snapples.
I got enough money for a Snapple. I'm good.
Yeah. All right. That wraps up my interview with Will Kidd. This is part 3. And it's finally over. It was such a long one, but it's so full of information and good stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed it. We will be talking to you soon. Don't forget www.lanaanddave.com. And that is where all of our social media and our podcast platforms are. And we are just about on every podcast platform you can imagine. In the meantime, have a great October/November at this point. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.